Hey there, this is your pal Pally, and welcome back to Getter Raid. I'm taking a look at PTR fights for the upcoming Siege of Orgrimmar, and we'll be putting out as many raid guides as possible. As always with PTR testing, the bugs will be plentiful and tuning will be off, so keep that in mind. Next up is the Kor'kron Dark Shaman. I didn't get many pulls on this fight due to my group slowly forming, and then I disconnected at the end. But I did get a chance to see most of the mechanics and feel confident in at least showing you guys what happens in the encounter. The fight is a 2-tank and probably 3-heal encounter on 10-man, and involves 2 bosses with a shared health pool. The first thing to note about this fight is that the pull is kinda tricky. The bosses and their mounts are inside Garrosh's throne room, and it's impossible to fight them in that small of a space. You'll need to have the tanks pull and run out of the room, or have a hunter misdirect the bosses out of there. Fortunately, once you get out of there, the entire landscape of Orgrimmar is at your disposal, although Blizzard has commented that some parts of it will be gated. I'll wager you'll have most of the Valley of Strength to use, and believe me, you are going to need it. After reading some forum posts, it seems like some people worked out that leaving half of the raid with one boss and the other half with the other seems to work out better from just the sheer amount of stuff on the ground to avoid. So think about it like Morchok from Dragon Soul. Even some people mention leaving one of the bosses in the throne room and putting the other out in the town. My guess would be that you leave Harum in the throne room because Kardris spawns the tornadoes. Just a theory at this point. Your first goal in the encounter is to kill off the mounts of the bosses. They hit the tanks fairly hard and have low health, so it just makes sense to get rid of them quickly. It may be that on live they change their health or make them a bigger part of the encounter on heroic or something, but for now, just kill them off. And now onto the bosses themselves. As I mentioned, they share a health pool, so it doesn't matter which one you are DPSing. The big part of this encounter is that at 90, 80, and 70%, the bosses drop totems that grant them additional abilities for the rest of the encounter. I'll go through what each of those totems does for the boss, but for now, you just realize that you'll be spending the majority of this fight dealing with all of it up until the end. The bosses also have a softened rage at 30%, where they cast Bloodlust on themselves and get down to killing you. I never got to this point with my group, but I heard it was a pretty rough enrage. So let's talk totems and then talk bosses. The first totem dropped is the Poison Mist totem. It comes at 90% and will give Harum the Toxic Mist ability and Kardris the Toxic Storm ability. Toxic Mist is simply a nasty dot that does increasing nature damage every 3 seconds for 30 seconds. It also increases the amount of nature damage you take up to 100%. Toxic Storm is a cloud that spawns above the boss and will periodically send tornadoes out that roam around the world. Obviously, both the cloud and the tornadoes are to be avoided. Foul Stream Totem is dropped when the bosses reach 80%. This grants Harum the Foul Stream ability, and Kardris the Foul Geyser ability. Foul Stream is a line of poison that gets laid on the ground and will hit you for 300k nature damage. Don't stand in it, duh. Foul Geyser will spawn adds called Foul Slimes. These should probably be kited and AoE down by ranged. Each one pulses with 100k nature damage every second, so they likely can't be straight up tanked. Lastly, the Ash Flare totem is laid down at 70% and grants Harum the Ashen Wall spell and Kardris Falling Ash. Ashen Wall is pretty easy to deal with. It's just a line of stationary, untargetable adds that will smack down anyone who gets near them. Once again, don't stand near the crap, and you're fine. Falling Ash is a big AoE that Kardris casts that has a huge red ground effect. Don't stand in it. And there really isn't much else to this fight other than the boss's main attacks. Harum's main attack is Darkstorm Strike that hits the tank with nature damage and increases their nature damage taken by 100% for a minute. This probably indicates a tank swap at some point, but we didn't get that far to see if that was the case. Kardris does Darkstorm Bolt that hits pretty hard, 600k. And once again, I was in an entirely pug group, so it wasn't the most organized pulls, plus I DC'd halfway through the testing hours, but I hope you've seen most of the mechanics you'll have to deal with. Much of the strategy is probably going to revolve around raid positioning and just plain not standing and stuff. Thanks for watching, and please comment, like, and/or subscribe to the video if you found it helpful, and have a good one!